there is growing pressure on the president to make a major speech about race in America. And already the left is criticizing the speech he hasn't given yet because apparently Stephen Miller is either composing it or it's having a hand in composing it or what have you. Here's the problem. Trump does not believe that racism remains a major problem in America. And of course, he's right. Trump is a business guy. He's about performance, 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 to quote Herman Cain in my documentary, Uncle Tom, which, by the way, is coming out on the 19th. UncleTom.com is the porthole through which you can get it. More on this as the date comes closer. So what's Donald Trump supposed to say? The legacy of race and racism. What does race and racism have to do, legacy of racism and slavery and Jim Crow have to do with the exponential increase in black kids being born outside of wedlock from 1965 till now? 1965 is 100 years after slavery. What does racism, Jim Crow, and slavery have to do with the fact that when you look at studies, it shows that black kids do far less homework than white kids, who in turn do less homework than Asian kids? I often watch the phenomenon of young basketball players, because I love sports, at the high school level, collegiate level, professional level, and coaches yelling at them, screaming at them, making them do drills over and over and over again, even when they're exhausted, making them shoot X number of free throws every day, and all of this work put into this craft. So these kids understand the distinction between work put in and results when it comes to basketball. But you don't understand the same phenomenon applies when it comes to academics. The more time you put in, the more you're going to know, the better you're going to do. And in some urban high schools, you're having a 50% dropout rate. And even those who graduate cannot read, write, and compute at grade level often have to go to take remedial courses in City College or in a four-year institution if they get into one, because of the substandard education K through 12. And you want Donald Trump to talk about race and racism and the legacy of Jim Crow? Are you kidding me? I've told you about the schizophrenic nature of Obama when it comes to racism. On the one hand, if he thought that America was truly the racist country he claims it is when he became president, he never would have thrown his hat in the ring. Think about it. Guy who had a funny name, we couldn't even pronounce it first, comes out of nowhere, is in the Senate for what, not even a year, maybe a year and a half, and he's approached by other senators and asked to run. He thought they were crazy at first. And he defeats somebody, what some people describe one of the most prepared candidates ever, and certainly one of the best funded candidates ever, Hillary Clinton. Snatched the nomination right away from her and became president, and despite a tepid recovery, got reelected. Do you think he really sincerely believes that racism remains a major problem in America given his life experiences? No, he doesn't. And we know he doesn't because of what he says when he gives commencement speeches. The Obama who gives commencement speeches is a very different Obama than the one that talks about race and racism in an interview. Commencement speeches, there's been no better time to be born than now, no better country to be born in than America. That's what he says over and over again. Different phrasing, but that's what he says. Well, if that's the case, then why are you talking about institutional racism and systemic racism and structural racism? Racism is in America's DNA, said Barack Obama. If it were in America's DNA, there's no way in hell he ever could have gotten elected president. Because as I said yesterday, you look at the polls in the 50s, would you vote for a black person? Hell no. Eric Holder says, when it comes to matters of race, America has, quote, been a nation of cowards. What does that mean? You just now heard what MLK said about the progress that had taken place in the previous 10 years, from 1957 to 1967. What, progress just stopped all of a sudden? The formula for success remains the same, irrespective of your race. Make sure you finish high school at minimum. Don't have a kid before you're ready. Get married first. Follow that formula. You will not be poor. Don't follow it. There's a good chance you will be. Now, I've told you that that formula has been outlined by the Brookings Institution, which is a left-wing think tank. And they don't have an asterisk next to it saying, unless you're black, unless you're Hispanic. Do you know that nearly half of the blacks at Harvard are either from Africa or from one of the Caribbean countries? And they do better on their SAT scores than the average white American does. So much for the idea that the SAT is culturally biased. And by the way, they're getting rid of it. Getting rid of it because it's unfair to people. And in California, they're getting rid of it. They're trying to get rid of it and go to what's called a holistic system. So they sit there and look at you and decide whether or not you're a UCLA kind of person because of their holistic way of looking at you. Let's remember why the SAT came into being, because colleges were admitting people through old boys club. And the SAT was designed to equalize the field. And now it's going away, and we're going back to an old person's club based upon the values and criteria of certain admissions officers. Does that make you feel any better?